Hey, welcome, fellow psychology enthusiasts. Mr. Walls, we're here. I hope things are going well. Hope you had a good weekend. Back with some more incredible videos. My fam started the Jordan documentary last night. My kid's real into basketball. And that Jordan documentary is pretty awesome. I'm a Knicks fan, which really doesn't amount to much. So you kind of become a passive observer of all basketball because you never really get to root for your favorite team. It's nice that the Nuggets are good. I like the Nuggets. They're kind of the second, well, I guess our family's kind of second favorite is the Golden State Warriors. Because when my kid was little, he was super into the Warriors. And I'm not letting him jump off that bandwagon just because the Warriors are rebuilding. Although the Warriors are going to be insane next year, so we're going to be super pumped about that. But I also love the Nuggets too. I just love the NBA in general. NBA and let's see, what do I love? College football and college lacrosse, the NBA, and anything cycling, bike racing related, and NASCAR. Those are sort of my big favorites. Those are the sports that I watch. I'm just kind of taking a minute to reflect on what I'm missing. Although I've been staying up pretty late watching old bike races and reading. And it's interesting. And by the way, when we get to the point where you're gonna do like a last project thing, most of it will be sort of creative. Like how did you cope with this whole thing? Or something to that effect. You know, I know this has been a tough time for everybody. It's been a tough time for me and our, family and this, that, and the other thing. I am getting a lot of good workouts, though. I hope you're getting a lot of good workouts because it's a great opportunity to kind of take a negative and turn it into a positive. It gives you the opportunity to start real slow. Like if you want to start running, you walk 3 miles and then run a mile and then walk 2 miles, like that kind of thing. Push-ups, sit-ups, that kind of stuff. Take advantage of this. Look, this is psychology. So the whole point of psychology is to analyze situations that affect the human psyche. So, find something that you're into. Anyway, I'm super into psych. By the way, I'm registering at CU for some classes this summer. Obviously, it's going to be online. So maybe you take some classes that you were saying, hey, man, I'd kind of like to get a jump on college psychology because Mr. Walls were so inspiring. Go Gators. Good Broncos draft, too. Actually, a great Broncos draft. And my favorite team is the Dolphins, and they had a great draft, too. Although the Broncos, I'm looking more forward to the Broncos season this year because I think that offense is going to be just unreal. Anyway, let me give you some stuff. Now, one of the things that when people ask me, what am I trying to accomplish with these lectures? What I'm trying to accomplish is I want to give you something that you can listen to for a half hour while you're walking the dog. And then I want you to kind of, maybe remember some of it. And then I want you to do an article where you learn a little something about something you're interested in. That's it. That's the goal of psychology. A dog walking, video that is something where you're just exposing yourself to some ideas. So, And if you're really interested in what I'm saying, pause it, take some notes, but first and foremost is just making learning somewhat independent and fun or enjoyable. Anyway, I want to show you a chart here. There you go. I've shown you this. That is the Yerkes-Dodson rule or law. The two curves on a graph. It looks like you're very used to something like this because they look a lot like the COVID-19. Let's flatten the curve. These are two curves on a graph. Now, Yerkes and Dodson, we're studying motivation and emotion. So Yerkes and Dodson set out to identify, as you know, your nervous system and your amygdala produce cortisol and epinephrine and norepinephrine to drive the response to a stimuli. So, and you remember you have your sympathetic and parasympathetic. Parasympathetic brings it back. Sympathetic, boom, autonomic, and sympathetic, bam, bam. You're ready to go. The amygdala, of course, plays a crucial role in all of this because it's what sends all the chemical messages and responses through the body and through the nervous system. So Yerkes and Dodson said, okay, well, how does this affect how we are able to perform a task? Now, this is why I brought up the Michael Jordan thing, because Michael Jordan was notorious for being in the zone. And he would get into games and he would say, and after the game, he would just light it up, and Kobe too. All these guys, look, man, you don't get to professional athletics without feeling some zone. And if I could have, like as someone who has tried out for a number of professional soccer teams going through my youth, the key word there is primarily the trying out part. But a coach, hey, look, good would be brought on as a player coach. But the zone wasn't there when it needed to be there all the time. But the fact is that zone is something that that characterized Jordan and the greats, Tiger Woods, when he would play golf, just in the zone. Roger Federer, one of these dudes, tennis is such a difficult psychological game because there's so much coordination involved. It's fascinating. If you talk to a tennis player like a Federer, the hard part for them is the getting ready for the shot and relaxing before the serve or before the swing. Baseball players the same way. That's why these games or sports are so difficult. Baseball is one of these sports that I have always put up there as probably one of the hardest sports to play because of the fact that you have this round bat and a round ball. So there's a very, very small sweet spot. And a baseball pitcher has the ability to manipulate, or softball has the ability to, when you watch like college softball and you see what those girls are doing to the freaking ball, they're throwing the thing like 100 miles an hour and it like dips or comes on up. And they're like 20 feet from the plate. Like, so I'm putting baseball and softball together. Uh, there's this component of those games or sports which you really cannot understand how they're able to do what they're able to do. And I'm going to explain a little of that with Yerkes and Dodson. So Yerkes and Dodson injected people with adrenaline. Now, adrenaline is something that the amygdala, when in the case of, some kind of emotional stimulus, that stimulates the fight or flight, the amygdala goes into action, and boom, we are ready to fight or flight or go away. So you're nervous in a game. Jordan had to be nervous in, game sevens or stuff like that. So Yerkes and Dodson said, let's see what the motor ability of a given individual is like with adrenaline. So they injected people with adrenaline and had them perform various tasks. One of the things that you can see here, I hope, is you can see that arousal is down here. Now, arousal is nervousness. In the case of what we're talking about is nervousness. Okay, so this is going to be the effect of the adrenaline. Okay, so in the case of a very difficult task, a lower level of arousal is optimal for performing a difficult task well. See that? Lower level of arousal is optimal for performing. Now, you need some arousal there, but a lower level is optimal for performing difficult tasks. Now, what's a difficult task? Let's take a look at your average football team. Wide receiver. Obviously, catching a ball in traffic is a difficult task. It requires a high level of reflex and focus. Focus is important here. Okay, so in the case of a wide receiver, you are going to want a lower level of arousal. Now, it's coffee time. As someone who has coached goalies his whole life, when I coach a goalie, I am calming a goalie. I consistently, when I'm warming up a goalie, every goalie's warm up is the exact same for every game. Routine. Okay, you will see in the case of goalies, we are very superstitious people. Well, what those superstitions are doing is those superstitions are calming us, okay? Calming the goalie. You'll see baseball players, they step out of the box, they get their hand straps, watch a dude, if we ever see baseball again, watch one of them step out of the box. They will do the exact same thing every time. Why? Because those superstitions, let's get to the chart again. Those superstitions keep the arousal level low because the task is remarkably complicated. So when I'm coaching goalies, I keep everything the same so that the goalie believes that they will get on the field and be fine, and it helps them to relax. You've heard the expression, I just want them to get, like when goalies, I just want them to get one hard shot early that's not too hard, where they have to make a save, because that too lends to the relaxing quality. and lowering of arousal. So when you coach a wide receiver, you coach a baseball player, okay, you try to get them to visualize success on the field or whatever it is they're doing, because you're trying to decrease arousal. You don't want a wide receiver off throwing up out of nerves. Although one of the things that does happen is there are who was it? It was one of the professional football players would throw up before every game, and it helped them relax. There's a ritual that helped them relax. But that's that Yerkes-Dodson, lowering the arousal for optimal performance. Okay? Now, if you're a meat stick, one of the big linemen, you'll notice that you probably have like a Coach McPhee working with you. And with those guys, and when I coach little lacrosse players, I'm grabbing them by the helmet and slapping them on the helmet, trying to get their arousal level up, because the first part of the game is going to be very physical, a lot of hitting, and the other parts will come with the hitting. Once they get to hit, once linemen get to hit someone, they'll relax, but you got to keep them fired up, because their activity requires less of the coordination stuff. It's a less complex skill, alignment. It's still it's still athletic. It's still a sport, but it's less complex than a wide receiver. The lineman is just going to be like, bam, hitting someone. Very simple skill that is power-based, not so much the motor reflex-based. So you don't want them too amped up, because then they jump off sides. But you'll definitely see McPhee grabbing him by the helmet and slapping him on the side of the helmet, because it is a easier task. Okay, so the optimum level of arousal is higher for the lineman than it is for the wide receiver. The focus doesn't need to be at the same level. Okay? The arousal level can be at a higher level. They can be like, they don't need to be calm. They need to be like fired up. And that's Yerkes-Dodson kind of in a nutshell. And so what is the zone? Well, the zone is that point here of optimum arousal. The person isn't sleeping on the court. The person's fired up, but the arousal level is at the perfect point by which their motor cortex is working brilliantly. They are able to catch a ball, turn, run, move side to side, or hit a ball. They are relaxed every time that baseball player, whatever it is they're doing with their gloves, they're relaxing, but they're not, remember, you need some arousal to perform these tests. So that's Yerkes-Dodson. Yerkes-Dodson says that the more difficult the task, the lower the level of arousal, right? And the less complex the task, the more arousal needed. And they did this with adrenaline. Okay. So when we talk about emotion, let's talk about, let me go back to those charts that we had. Remember these, which is James Lang, Cannon-Bard, Schachter-Singer, and the two-factor Schachter-Singer theory. Well, one of the things that we have found, now that we have the ability to very specifically monitor the brain, is we now know that we can bypass, we're able to bypass the cognitive part of emotion. So let's say we get a fear response, bam, okay? That fear response that comes into the eyes, then will go into the thalamus, okay? At the point it reaches the thalamus in the brain, it goes to the prefrontal cortex where it is recognized as a threat, at which point it goes to the amygdala, which, boom, starts the reaction. So with that particular, let me draw that for you. So I've got my trusty max. So where's my crayons? Okay, so in that particular case, we have fear, and fear goes into the thalamus, up to the, we'll make this, we'll just make this the brain. This is the worst drawing I've ever done, kids. To the prefrontal, this is awful, but it's better than me just, okay. So you can see the fear comes into the thalamus, goes to the prefrontal for cognition, comes back to the amygdala where, boom, the body is going. We can observe that using the various scan technologies we have. Now, one of the things that we have found, and this is fascinating, is it can take, emotion can take a low road, which eliminates the cognition. Where's my cognition? Prefrontal. It eliminates the prefrontal component. So it simply, the fear goes into, it goes thalamus, amygdala, out, and we are ready. No cognition of it. It's called it's the low road, and it's Joseph Ledoux who actually did the study. It bypasses the cortex. The neural pathways completely bypass. I'm sorry, high road. Is that the high road? Yeah. No, low road bypasses, high road uses the cognition part of the prefrontal. So it's the low road bypasses. I always get my roads mixed up. I'm sorry, kids, about that. This is just Mr. Walsware. I'm still sipping the coffee. High road and low road, Joseph Ledoux stuff is, sometimes I space out and mix them up. But I think it's low road, which bypasses the prefrontal cortex, and just, gets you going. These certain emotions do that. Certain emotions, just say, no, we're not going to cognition. Anyway, that's something that we focus on with emotion. The other thing is something called the spillover effect, which is fascinating to me. Carl Jung called this the collective shadow projection. So when you see something like a riot at a soccer match, which, most sports in America, we don't really have riots, but if you get over to like the English Premier League, they have to cordon off sections of fans. And what happens is when you have someone who is exhibiting a certain level of emotion, i.e., they are super angry, there's a spillover of that emotion, which can lead to, entire sections of a soccer match just blowing up. Okay? It's just everybody just kind of, that emotion starts to transfer. And this is something very natural. When someone presents, and there are face studies that we have where we can look at a face, see anger, and it gets us angry. That's a defense mechanism. All of this is survival-based evolution. So when you see, that anger and violence in a, soccer match, in the fans, there's a spillover. The people in the surrounding area, that spillover may affect them and they may start to brawl. That's the spillover effect. Is there anything else really with the motivation and emotion? This week's, I think I'll make this week's article something that deals with emotion. We'll just do emotion. So anyway, until I see you next, go get yourself a great workout. Enjoy the sun. And this is Mr. Walsware signing off. Love y'all.